how do you explain saffron to people? How do you explain saffron? That's a great question just in and of itself. I have one, and a lot of people that only see it online think that it's way more orange than it is, and so I try to compare it to like Carhartt brand tan. Is there a standard color of saffron, or if not, what do you say saffron is to somebody who doesn't know what the heck a saffron kilt is?
Saffron is, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, is a spice, correct?
It is also a spice, yes.
Yes, well, that's where it comes from. It's the spice.
Yep.
So saffron itself is a spice, a very, very expensive spice. And you can use it to dye things, to dye it this color. It's like a mustardy, Dijon mustard brown kind of Carhartt tan kind of color, caramelish. And it's a bit difficult to describe the color, but I would say this. There are going to be multiple shades of saffron in the same way there's going to be multiple shades of like indigo. There's not just one indigo color. Some are going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, getting from a dyeing perspective, depending on the chemicals that you put into it or how long it seeps in the dye, how well the cloth, the medium absorbs the color, that kind of thing. So there's no one color of saffron. Martin Mills and La Caron both do saffron fabric, and they're both a little bit different. They're not like, you can't lay them on top of each other and say, aha, they're both the exact same. That's the shade of saffron. And I think Martin Mills even does a shade of saffron in polyviscose. So even that's a touch different. So there's no one and only shade. They're close enough for government work. You know what it is. Okay. It's not like, ooh, why is that, neon yellow? That's not saffron. It's not that bad, but they're reasonably close. And yeah, I'd say the easiest common denominator would be like the Carhartt brown, kind of caramely color is the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, I'd say for kilts, that's the most common.
Especially for guys that, may wear Carhartt fabric.
I think it's important to realize that though we call it saffron, if you go back in time, to the origins of saffron being a significant color, it's because it was considered the color of the kings in Ireland. And I don't know that saffron, the spice, was always used as the source for that dye. There are other tannic dyes that you can use, my wife would know which ones, which can produce that kind of mustard yellow. So whether they're using true saffron or using a native wood to get that color, I don't know. But I think that what I'm pointing out is that historically there have always been differences in the color of saffron. It's a range. It's definitely not a solid, must always be exactly this Pantone. To Rocky's point, if you order a saffron kilt and accessories, this is just like using a tartan. You need to make sure you're getting it from the same source when you buy something later on so that you have a correct color match. Like if you decide to get the flashes later because you didn't get them with a kilt, you want to make sure you're getting it from the same cloth if possible. And
yeah, I'd even go a step further. When somebody wants to buy a kilt or whatever, and they say, we ask them, do you want to buy a fly plate or matching flashes? And if they ask, why should I buy it now versus later? Because it's cut from the same bolt of cloth. There's a reason the phrase cut from the same bolt of cloth is a thing, because it's going to be a dead-on match. Because it's not, dye lot 1 versus dye lot 82. Or, the run of this tartan number 1 versus run number 82. Years later, it could be a slightly different color green, a slightly different color blue, a slightly different color saffron from the same mill.
Yep.
It can vary from batch to batch. It is going to be more forgivable in a tartan than it would be in a solid color. So if your piper's plaid in saffron is ordered 4 years later from your kilt, even if it's the same mill, it will be a different batch. It very may well be a different color, and it's going to look a little different. And I'd rather, in that instance, order it the same time as the kilt to make sure it matches if you think you're going to want it later on. Same thing with tweeds. Like, there's a lot of things where trying to match something after the fact, especially years later, can prove very difficult.
Yeah,